The anime starts with Hero's penalty being a sentence that forces criminals to forever be resurrected to fight demons and is the worst form of punishment. As a man, Dada Luzulas runs through a snowy forest, whilst creatures devour the surrounding knights in the forest. As a sole individual begins to pray, we see Dada being slammed off course whilst carrying something, and as he rushes to hide in a cave, a demonic monster continues to pursue him. Crying for Xylo to appear, we follow Xylo for bars heroically skewer the creature in order to rescue Dada. As Xylo pins Dada down, Dada begs to be killed and resurrected having been stabbed, but Xylo slaps some sense into Dada only to remind him that heroes can never die and they're forced to resurrect with side effects. Xylo says the Holy Knights would never help heroes, so as Xylo creates a fire, he orders Dada to remove the stick lodged in him, only to help seal the wound with fire. In the aftermath, Xylo scolds Dada for messing up, but Dada says he simply stole an item from the Holy Knight's carriage. Dada says he saw a lot of fairies since they're dealing with a big demon blight, and it seems Dada and Xylo have been tasked with holding off 5,000 demons. Xylo fears the demon blight will soon take over the forest, and our duo have to help the Holy Knights escape, or else their heads will be blown off. Dada knows that heroes like them can be revived as long as there is a body, but each revival removes a portion of their memories or self, something Xylo despises, but they must keep moving forward. As Xylo prepares to head back to assist the Holy Knights, he notices the item Dada had stolen, but freakishly Xylo realizes it's a coffin. Xylo worries that the coffin isn't empty, so as our duo open the casket, they realize there is a person lying in the casket. Sadly, Xylo knows the little girl before them isn't human and is indeed a goddess, words that infuriate Xylo. Dada knows that goddesses are used to fight demon lords long ago and were considered humanity's last ray of hope, but seeing as he doesn't want any part of this, Xylo declares they're leaving without her. Heading to a cliff, Xylo asks Dada to scan the surroundings only for Dada to declare that a group of Futhas are attacking a camp. In the camp, we watch as multiple knights fall victim to the creatures around them, and although the knights are slaying the creatures, the sheer swarm of monsters begins to overtake the knights. Xylo wonders why the knights are having trouble even though they were prepared for fairy attacks, but Dada says they can use this chance to hide and wait out the storm. Xylo says they should probably head down to help them, especially since each knight save would increase their overall success, so as Xylo gears up ready to head down the mountain, a voice suddenly catches Xylo's attention. With various sparks matching her march, the little goddess from earlier appears only to declare Xylo as her knight. Xylo is clearly frustrated, but when the girl declares she'll ensure their victory, she adds that she wants to be praised after with words and head pats. Annoyed, Xylo says he knows the girl is the unactivated 13th goddess known as Tiarita, but as Tiarita asks what Xylo wants from her, Xylo says Tiarita is hiding something. Refusing to ask for help, Xylo leaves Dada to look after Tiarita whilst he personally leaps down the mountain, and with Dada in charge of directions he first instructs Xylo to look left. Surprisingly, Tiarita has followed Xylo her knight, and as a swarm of creatures approach Xylo, Xylo simply ignites his blade only to toss it towards the crows. As a massive explosion rings out, Tiarita is surprised Xylo used a sacred seal for heat and light, and as Xylo rushes to save a nearby knight, he says he'll help draw their attention. Instantly, Xylo lights up two approaching monsters, and with Dada joining the battle, he barely manages to slay an enemy with his thunder staff. With Xylo continuing to massacre the monster, we see Dada ignoring Tiarita as well, and with the knight's commander occupied, Xylo takes it on himself to clear out the bulk of monsters nearby. Sadly, Xylo is caught off guard as he receives a scratch from an attacker, but before he is devoured, Dada rescues him with his thunder staff. Grateful, Xylo charges deeper into the forest towards the horde of monsters, leaving Dada and Tiarita to chase after him. As the sun sets, we see the surviving knights excited to see that Xylo has returned safe, but upon realizing Xylo is a hero, the men suddenly become agitated. Xylo declares the knights better retreat before more monsters appear, but seeing the knights refuse due to their honor, Tiarita suddenly appears and tries defusing the situation. Sadly, the knights recognize her to be the goddess, so as they ready their blades and demand to know why Xylo has her. With no other choice, Xylo prepares to put down the men he just saved, but out of nowhere Venedim Leopold contacts our heroes. Venedim says he needs their help, only to reveal that the Holy Knight's main forces are heading right into the Blight. At the same time, we follow Venedim and his forces as they make a report to the temple only to wonder how they'll explain how their transport team lost a valuable coffin, and it seems Venedim has heard a chunk of their knights are gathering to take down the Blights now. Xylo is clearly confused as he and Dada were asked to help the knights retreat, but suddenly Xylo realizes something. The knights before him reveal that Captain Patosh Kivia had ordered her knights to give their lives for her plan, but Xylo is pissed that the knights trust in such a reckless plan. Venedim adds that Xylo and Dada are to head to help the knights as they'll be punished and a majority of the knights aren't saved. Seeing no other way, Xylo asks for directions, only to hear their forces are at the Purcell River near the second crossing point. Xylo orders the knights present to give up and retreat to the station Venedim is currently at, so with Xylo ordering Dada to come with him, he says he would rather let the knights perish but he wants to prove them wrong. At a different location, we see a camp of knights and men gathered, but seeing a swarm of demons approaching, they ready their thunderstaff and line up for combat. At that moment, Kiva appears and orders her men to wait as long as possible before engaging, so as the creatures dive into the nearby lake to travel towards the camp, Kivia finally issues the order to fire. Sadly it seems trolls are appearing as well, leading the thunder ballistes to be used, as they can't allow the creatures from crossing the river. Off to the side, Xylo sees the Verkle Development Corporation's assault team are barely getting by, but it seems they'll run out of ammo soon. Xylo doesn't seem to recognize anyone, but right on cue the assault team's ballistes run out of ammo, forcing the men to fortify the front lines with their lives. Xylo fears that the fairies are cunning and it seems the demon lord controlling them is smart, so as Xylo prepares to move out, he suddenly notices Dada has vanished and has left to loot the Holy Knights. Suddenly sensing danger, Xylo rushes over to the knight's location using a flying seal, and with things ramping up, Xylo starts by raining down explosions. Next, Xylo begins slashing at the horde of monsters, but sadly the demons have prepared projectiles of their own. Having launched a rain of monsters onto the assault team, the demons chip away at the human defense, but Xylo continues to work his way around the camp whilst Kivia takes note of the damage. Completely disgusted, Xylo torrentially strikes the approaching demons, only to finish his onslaught with a massive explosion. Now standing before Kivia and her men, Kiva demands to know who Xylo is, but when Tiarida appears, Kiva wonders why the goddess isn't on her way to Galchuile. Before Xylo can be accused of stealing the goddess, Xylo says he isn't at fault plus he is returning the goddess to the Holy Knights now. Kivia tries asking more questions, but Xylo reminds her they're still finding the demon lord, leading everyone to face the forest before them as it becomes swallowed up by demon blight. With the forest creatures all being corrupted, Kivia says the 47th demon lord, Awd Gagi, is who they'll be facing. With the knights glancing at the demon lord, they all fire their weapons to spray down the monster, but sadly a force field around the boss reflects the attacks back onto the knights. Xylo says the demon lord is cunning so they need to fight at close range. Sadly the first capital has yet to invent any rams or slings. Kivia says they'll use scorched earth seals when the boss gets closer to them, but Xylo stresses that the demons will simply blow up the ground to cancel out the seals. With Kivia stressed, she hears Xylo asking everyone to retreat, but upon realizing that Xylo is a hero, she stands firm as she refuses to listen to a criminal. Kivia reveals that she wanted to send the goddess to Galchuile whilst herself and her knights give her lives in battle, but before can wonder why Xylo's name sounds familiar, a sudden projectile is launched in her direction. Luckily, Kivia survived the blast, but it seems the AWD has transformed and is now hovering in the sky. As AWD begins spraying projectiles onto the camp, we see the projectiles sprouting demons that begin overrunning the knights, and to make things worse the demons have crossed the lake. With no knight able to fight against the demons, Xylo desperately rushes to save whoever he can, but before Kivia can be saved, the demons knock down a nearby ballistes and spray them with thunder. As the smoke clears, Xylo is seen barely conscious. As for Tiarida, she once again begs Xylo to use her power, but Xylo cries he will never trust another goddess again. Crying out into the void, Xylo asks Kivia to make a pact with the goddess, but sadly a piece of Kivia's armor is seen at Xylo's feet. Suddenly Xylo begins to have a panic attack as he can picture people being devoured by the demons, but Tiarida's voice breaks through the noise only to once again offer Xylo the ability to save as many people as he can. Seeing no other way, Xylo agrees to form a pact, and with the offering of some of his blood, Xylo swears to be Tiarida's knight. As Tiarida kisses Xylo's wound, Xylo is suddenly flung into a majestic world, but such a sensation reminds him of his past. With the pact formed, Tiarida asks what Xylo desires, but without another word, our duo are seen surrounded by the endless horde. Luckily, Tiarida gets serious as she makes a prayer of her own, and as the goddess of swords, Tiarida conjures hundreds of night blue swords that skewer and puncture the monsters, instantly silencing the surroundings. Before Xylo can praise Tiarida with headpats, Xylo says they have to clear out everyone, so as he tosses his blades, he demands Tiarida fetch him some more. Barbarically, Xylo launches sword after sword only to notice Kivia is still alive, but when he orders Kivia to retreat, Kivia refuses to listen to a hero. Xylo sadly stands firm as he agrees to accept any punishment after he slays the demon lord himself, so as Xylo places Tiarita on his shoulder, he propels himself towards AWD. With a roar, AWD sends its demons towards Xylo, so with Xylo prioritizing the weaklings, he reminds Tiarita to not stress herself as the flames attached to her glow brighter when she does. Xylo declares he'll open up a path for her, prompting Xylo to begin carving up the enemy, only to ignite his feet as our duo rush past the remaining demons and towards the boss itself. Tiarita says she can take over now, but Xylo refuses as he takes charge, and begins ascending AWD's body. Tossing out a blade, Xylo manages to sever one of its legs, leading the boss to howl and send its monsters towards Xylo, something that forces Tiarita to step in. Instantly, Tiarita's swords skewer and clear a path for Xylo to leap towards the eye of the storm. Without speaking, Tiarita suddenly conjures a golden blade just like what Xylo had in mind, and upon igniting the blade, Xylo launches the sword into the demon lord. With a massive explosion filling the air, Xylo clings onto Tiarita as they fall, but disturbingly AWD begins to throw a fit as strange tentacles knock and blow away everything. Barely awake, Xylo sees Tiarita calling out to him, all whilst AWD begins upheaving the surrounding earth. At that moment, Dada appears, having just stolen a scorched earth seal, something that brings a smile to Xylo's face. Having made up his mind, Xylo begins tweaking the seal, having used one in the past, and as Xylo leaps towards the boss, he tosses the seal into the boss only to flee with Dada and Tiarita. With a final explosion rupturing throughout the forest, we cut to the next day. The remaining fairies are seen fleeing, all whilst Xylo and Tiarita watch from afar. Xylo reveals that he has defeated many demon lords in the past, and having punished Dada for stealing, Xylo sees Tiarita acting strange. Seeing as she needs praise, Xylo praises Tiarita for surviving, but not satisfied, Tiarita demands some head pats. Giving in, Xylo reaches out only to freeze upon remembering something familiar, but suddenly Kivia appears to retrieve our heroes. Kivia officially charges the heroes for stealing the goddess, and plus Xylo will be punished for disobeying orders and slaying the demon lord by himself. Before Kivia can speak further, Tiarita says she believes and trusts in Xylo, but Kivia cries that Xylo used to be a holy knight and had slayed a goddess in the past. Flashing back, we follow Xylo locked up before a judge and witnesses, as he was formerly the captain of the Federated Kingdom's Fifth Order of Holy Knights. Having led his unit to take down the 11th demon lord, Xylo was partnered with Sinerva, his pact goddess at the time, but it was then when tragedy struck. Xylo cries that reinforcements never came, but the judge asks Xylo to be silent as the judge reads it was Xylo's fault for his team's deaths, but Xylo cries he was given the order to do so. Sadly, the judge doesn't believe his words, and although captains can make their own decisions and disobey orders in battle, Xylo committed the worst crime and slayed his own goddess. Immediately the crowd demands Xylo be executed, but Xylo cries that they were sent to rescue another squad, but the backup they were promised never arrived. The judge says they don't believe him, words that dig deep as Sinerva was forced to exert all of her power in order to protect Xylo, and in the end, Xylo had to put her down in fear of the demon blight corrupting her. Sadly, the judge rushes to dispel Xylo's words, as they declare no such records are recorded in the church. Plus they blame Xylo for going berserk due to the seals he has carved into his body. But Xylo cries that a corrupted goddess is too dangerous, words that force the judge to silence Xylo. With guards pinning Xylo to the floor, he cries that the military and government are setting him up, but upon glancing at the judge, he realizes he had been set up all along. With the judge sentencing Xylo to be a hero, he swears he'll seek revenge on the people who conspired against him. Suddenly awaking from his nightmare, Tiarita reports Venetim wants to speak with him, but Xylo asks Tiarita to leave as he wants to sleep. Xylo asks if they told her about his past and the hero punishment, but Tiarita suspects Xylo has his reasons for slaying a goddess, and it seems Tiarita wants to keep their contract even though she can cancel it at any time. Just then Venetim speaks with Xylo telepathically, crying out that they need Xylo's help, so Tiarita drags Xylo out of bed. Xylo says it has something to do with Tatsuya and his majesty, people who are heroes as well. As Xylo and his party head out, they cross a frozen lake that impresses Tiarita, but elsewhere Kivia gets orders to suspend the mission to transport the 13th goddess and instead needs to clear the Zuangon tunnels. Kivia hears that since the 4th subjugation war, the demon blight serpent appeared and corrupted the nearby forest and over 20 years wiped out half of all habitable land. Therefore the hero unit will deal with the issue immediately. Before Kivia leaves, she is asked to greet the high priest Marlin. At night, the hero scolds Xylo for sending Dada to the repair shop after injuring him, but Tiarita asks who the strange man in their party is. Xylo says Norgalson Ridge believes he is the king of the Federated Kingdom, and became a hero after he tried terrorizing the kingdom. As for Tatsuya, he is a strange fellow with a mysterious background and was a hero longer than anyone present. The next day the gang reach a village only to notice how poorly kept the place seems, and since the demon blight is arriving soon, the standard procedure is to evacuate, but Venedim spots some guards speaking with some villagers. Elsewhere, Xylo is seen speaking with a shopkeeper, but when he asks for digging tools to clear the nearby tunnel, the lady runs off crying that it's too late. Luckily, Xylo bumps into a little kid that points him towards the tunnel, but she also asks if her dad will be back for her birthday. Speechless, Xylo continues walking, having known that the Zuangon tunnels produce iron for sacred seals, so the military and Verkels Development Corporation funded the location. Xylo says the location got ferried, and when Tiarita asks about sacred seals, Xylo says the temple deems them wisdom from the gods. Xylo reveals he can only use 2 seals carved in his body, and it's actually Norgal that can tune the seals, and it takes one's life force and will to invoke them. Norgal gets to work demonstrating a sun seal to light a lamp, something that excites Tiarita, but back on track Venedim says that there were reports of miners a month ago turning into fairies. The gang suspect number 51, Lotus, is behind this, so the heroes must create a path for the Holy Knights to attack. Before the gang enters the tunnel, Venedim excuses himself from the work to come, leading Xylo to begin excavating a path only to get annoyed at the progress they are making. Noral demands Xylo stop complaining as Tatsuya is doing fine, and when Tiarita offers to help out, Xylo immediately shoots down the offer. Tiarita says she wants to be praised, but just then Kivia and her knights appear to inspect the hero's work, and when Kivia asks if Tiarita wants to join her unit, Tiarita refuses. Norgal also speaks up asking Kivia to not bother the goddess, but regardless, Kivia asks why Xylo didn't say it was Dada who stole the goddess, not him. Xylo says Kivia wouldn't have believed him anyway, something that annoys Kivia as Xylo was keeping secrets, but Xylo snaps back. Xylo says a ferried mine is something that can be left alone, but Xylo suspects that temple or military is planning on using Tiarita for something, hence why they're in this tunnel, something Kivia doesn't confirm or deny. As Kivia and her knights leave, the heroes end up digging into a nest of monsters, leading Tatsuya to begin his rampage. With Xylo unable to use explosion magic due to the space, Tatsuya takes over and slaughters the creatures swarming them, and seeing as the location isn't completely uninhabitable, the heroes choose to make it the Knights' frontline base. Getting to work, Xylo prepares some equipment, exciting Tiarita as she asks where she can plant a stake to help. With Xylo giving Tiarita some instructions to create a seal, Tiarita rushes to plant the stake only to do a sloppy job, but Xylo lets it go as he says they'll need to set up some supply chests as well. At that moment, Norgal unveils a chest he has been working on, a trapped item called Zolan Volkov to scare away foes, and the only way to disarm it is a special key. Taking the chance, Xylo and Tatsuya restrain Norgal and demand he modify the chest for their sake. Later that day, Xylo begins cooking up some meat and mushrooms, and when he needs more heat, Norgal scorches the meal. As for Tiarita, she is busy mashing together ingredients to serve the heroes, and whilst Tiarita demands praise, the gang wish they had more rations to go around. Tiarita hears they're close to the demon lord, so she asks if they could quickly slay it, but Xylo says no since it's against orders, something that annoys Tiarita. Tiarita says her existence is to fight the demons, but just then the heroes receive a call from the main forces crying for help. Switching to Kivia, she and her forces are seen met with humans corrupted by the demon blight, so as the creatures rush her, Kivia begins to dispatch them one at a time. With more demons overrunning them, we follow Xylo and the heroes as they arrive just in time, but Tiarita is frightened as the creatures before them were once humans. Xylo says these beings are called knockers, so with Xylo asking Kivia to give them the order, Kivia demands the heroes help them. As Tatsuya springs forth, he slashes at the knockers, only for Xylo to follow up and officially put the miners to rest. In the aftermath, some of the knights are disgusted by what they did, but Xylo sees there is a worker huddled up completely shell-shocked at what they heard and saw. Having empathy, Kivia asks Xylo how many knights she would lose if they went and saved all the survivors in the mines, but suddenly a priest speaks up and reminds Kivia that Galchuil had ordered for the mines to be sealed and that survivors weren't a priority. Pissed, Norgal cries that no human should be left to perish, but the priest simply mocks Norgal as the last disciple of Sage Hordo, yet he is a hero. With Xylo glancing at Tiarita's expression, he declares the hero party will rescue the survivors and to seal the mine regardless if they make it out in time or not. Before Tiarita can commend Xylo's bravery, Xylo declares Tiarita won't be coming with them, as Xylo is pissed that the commanders even came up with such a plan. Following the other survivors, they're seen despairing as the demons are breaking into their safe haven, but luckily Xylo and the heroes appear, drawing the creatures' attention. With ferocious swings, Tatsuya carves through the creatures and bypasses the monster's spit binds, and to top things off Xylo cleans up the swarm with an explosion. Gathering the survivors, Xylo instructs all the miners to allow Norgal to carve sacred seals into their weapons, and with each seal having limited uses due to the lack of sunlight, Norgal declares his special seal should be stronger and more effective. Xylo declares he has a gauge on his body to determine the amount of luminescence left in his body, and seeing as it'll run out soon, Xylo ends up chatting with one of the miners. The miners had lost all hope as they were thrown away as pawns for the higher-ups when a retreat was ordered, and sadly there were originally 50 miners, but one night one of the men heard strange voices and wandered off into the demon blight section of the cave only to strangely return as a monster. Having gathered everyone, Norgal says they'll all be leaving the mines, and with Xylo guarding the rear guard, a sudden earthquake gives rise to multiple demons that spring from the earth below. Immediately, Xylo orders the miners to fight for their lives as they've been surrounded, and seeing the miners quaking, the heroes agree to give their lives for the miners if it comes down to it. With their all-out battle starting, we switch back to the Holy Knights, who are annoyed Tiarita isn't listening to them since Xylo isn't present, but regardless, they make plans to take out the nearby demon lord. Having survived the wave, Xylo calls for any injured to be patched up as they need to move immediately, but sadly the men's exhaustion causes them to despair. Luckily, Norgal steps up and gives a jaw-dropping speech that inspires the miners to rise to the challenge, and interestingly the miners know Xylo and the others are heroes, but they still respect them as their saviors. With another quake occurring, the men ready themselves as another wave of demons appear, but this time the men have the courage to rush forth and slay the creatures. Sadly, the monsters seem to be huge in numbers, leading multiple miners to be lethally wounded, and before Xylo or the heroes can rescue the injured, a wave of swords flood the cave and skewer the bugs. With Tiarita declaring her entrance, she asks that the men praise her since she saved everyone, but Xylo is clearly annoyed that she is here. As for Norgal, he states they'll make a fence with the sacred seals he carves into the swords, so with the miners getting to work, Tiarita demands praise from Xylo. Sadly, Xylo orders Tiarita to return to the night side as she won't be needed, words that hurt Tiarita. Xylo clarifies that he doesn't want Tiarita using up her powers and draining her life force for some sacrificial glory, something that makes Tiarita smile as she realizes Xylo is the perfect knight for her, so moving forward she'll do as she pleases if it means she can save people. Stunned by what he is hearing, the ground suddenly quakes, but thanks to their fence it seems the demons will have some difficulty reaching them. To be safe, Xylo begins tossing out some blades to slow down the approaching demons, but sadly a death-shrieking voice floods Xylo's head and forces the miners onto their knees. Strangely, Tatsuya manages to fight through the pain, but Tiarita chooses to rush to Xylo's side and begins healing and negating the demonic voice, something that seems to be caused by a demon lord. From the demon blight, several roots begin sprouting and wrapping around each other to give rise to a tree, only for demon lord Lotus to make her appearance. With a mere shriek, the miners become concussed only for their bodies to begin mindlessly moving towards Lotus, all whilst they claw at themselves in pain. Norgal is pissed Lotus is leading his followers astray, but Xylo reasons those who can fight should assist Tatsuya as the tinnitus doesn't seem to be affecting him. With Xylo asking Tiarita to conjure more blades, Xylo begins assisting Tatsuya from the side by tossing out blades, ultimately allowing Tatsuya to worm his way past Lotus's roots and towards the source of the shrieks. With every howl, Tatsuya simply speeds up, all whilst Xylo increases his sword throws, and seeing Lotus extending its mouth to gnaw on Tatsuya, Xylo calls for Tatsuya to sever it in two. Surprisingly, the severed mouth was a decoy as Tatsuya is bounded by a root, and it seems Lotus's real body is off to the side along the cave. Right on cue, Kiva and her knights appear only to lock onto Lotus's real body, but with a single shriek, all the holy knights collapse to the ground awaiting their demise as roots sprout beneath them. Having no choice, Xylo leaves the fence and begins buying some time, but Lotus takes the chance to destroy the fence as it begins wrapping up the miners and heroes. Roaring out anger, Norgal manages to save Tiarita from being tied up, and with no choice, he sets his lantern ablaze and manages to scorch Lotus's real body, but sadly this only causes Lotus to snatch Norgal up as it prioritizes him. Seeing an opening, Tatsuya grabs hold of Lotus and with his bulging muscles manages to drag its roots out from beneath the earth, granting Xylo enough time to retrieve Norgal's special lantern. Sadly, Lotus's roots begin restraining Xylo from using the lantern, but Norgal has had enough as he begins hacking away at his leg. Freeing himself, Norgal skewers Lotus's eye only to be sent flying, but this is enough time for Xylo to make use of the lantern and set Lotus ablaze. Instantly, the searing blue flames spread across Lotus's bodies, plus we see the survivors have been saved. In the aftermath, it seems Norgal's heroism has spread throughout the villagers, and although the heroes are still hated, it seems the miners will never forget how the heroes saved their lives. Coincidentally, the girl that hated Xylo prior now has a gift for him since he saved her dad, but before Tiarita can take any credit, Xylo asks her to pipe down since she is still a child. Off to the side we see the priest annoyed that the heroes are getting all the praise, but Kivia stands up for them as she points out how useless the priest was, only to allow Xylo and the others to indulge in their spoils after such a long battle.